Hi everyone, let me present here the basics of computer. This video is going to be very beneficial to students and also to anyone who's interested in knowing about computer. Let me begin. Introduction to computer. A computer is an electronic device which converts unorganized facts or data into some meaningful information. A collection of instructions that is executed by a computer to perform a specific task is known as computer program. People who develop these programs are called computer programmers. Hardware and software. Hardware is a term which is used to describe the physical components of a computer. Any computer part that you can touch and see, such as the computer monitor, keyboard, mouse, etc., are hardware. To make these hardware components work, software is required. Software is a set of instructions provided to the computer to carry out the job required by the user. A basic computer system consists of a monitor, main system unit, keyboard, and a mouse. A monitor is a visual display unit like a television set. It is an output device. It is used to show the result of processing done by the computer. It is used to display text, numbers, graphics, video, etc. Monitors available in different sizes. It is measured diagonally. The common monitor size is 15-inch. For designing and desktop publishing purposes, 17-inch or bigger monitor is preferred. Main system unit. It contains all the major components of the computer. It contains the central processing unit, random access memory, and an electronic circuit board known as the motherboard. The front and back of the system unit has many indicators, switches, and connectors for various purposes. Keyboard. Keyboard is the main input device. The format of a computer keyboard is similar to the typewriter keyboard. Mouse. The mouse is a handheld input device that is used with a computer. Moving a mouse along a flat surface can move the cursor to different items on the screen. Items can be moved or selected by clicking the mouse buttons. Initially, mouse was not part of the basic computer configuration, but with the use of Windows and other graphic interface, mouse has become a part of the basic computer system configuration. Other devices. One can use a device called modem to connect the computer to a number of different computers anywhere around the world using the internet, the worldwide network of computers. A scanner can be used to feed any existing image, photograph, drawings, etc. into the computer. Printer. Printer is an output device. It is used to get the computer output on a paper, envelope, OHP, transparency sheet, etc. Output produced by the printer is called hard copy. There are three types of printers: dot matrix, inkjet, and laser. The quality of printed output is measured by the number of dots printed by the printer in square inch area. This is known as dots per inch value. Power supply. The power supply provides various parts of the computer with clean DC power supply to keep the computer functioning. The power supply converts high voltage AC power from the AC main supply to DC power required by the computer. A fan is provided in the power supply to cool the computer. If this fan fails, the computer may overheat and start giving intermittent problems. Well, friends, so far I have given an introduction about computer, hardware and software, and basic computer system. Next, I move on to motherboard and its components. Motherboard. The motherboard contains the CPU, memory, and support chips to make the computer work. Motherboard also contains many expansion slots on which you can connect various circuit boards. These circuit boards are used to connect different devices such as monitor, printer, scanner, etc. The motherboard contains CPU, coprocessor, CMOS memory, real-time clock, memory, BIOS support chips, expansion slots. The motherboard is a printed circuit board. The components are placed and connected with the help of copper tracks. Motherboard PCB contains many such tracks to make electrical connection between different components of the system. These tracks are very fine and hence one should not put excessive pressure on the board while inserting or removing cards or chips. Once a track is broken, because of the multiple layers of tracks, it is almost impossible to trace the broken area and repair it. So this is the motherboard and different parts of the motherboard are displayed. The motherboard has the following components. CPU. The main component of any motherboard is the main processor chip which controls the inner functions of the system. CPU is usually inserted into the socket and is not soldered onto the motherboard. This makes it easier to replace it in case there is any problem or if there is a need to upgrade it. Coprocessor. Coprocessor is a special purpose processor. It is used to speed up the main processor by taking over some of the main processor tasks. Most common type of coprocessor is math coprocessor. A math coprocessor helps the main processor in performing mathematical calculations. CMOS memory. In old IBM XT or compatible systems, BIOS along with jumpers allows us to detect the components on the computer system. IBM 80 and higher systems do not use these jumpers. Instead, they use a small CMOS memory with battery backup to store the system configuration, date and time. Here CMOS stands for complementary metal oxide semiconductor. This CMOS memory receives power from a battery accompanying it. This battery helps in retaining the information stored in it even when the system is switched off. Real-time clock. RTC displays the computer's current date and time. With the help of a battery and CMOS memory, this circuit maintains the exact date and time even when the main AC supply to the computer is switched off. Memory. Memory is a place where the computer stores the program and data and it helps the program to carry out its operation. There are basically two types of memory used in the computer. They are RAM and ROM. RAM or random access memory. It is the main memory inside the computer. It is used to store program, data and results. It is called random access because you can access any memory address directly without having to pass through all the lower addresses first. That means you can access memory locations in any order, not just in 1, 2, 3 serial fashion. RAM is also known as read or write memory. One can store data in RAM and other can read the data stored in the RAM. The physical installations of RAM memory on the motherboard can take place in various ways. DIP, dual inline pin memory chips, were used on initial motherboards. SIMM, single inline memory module. DIMM, dual inline memory module. ROM or read-only memory, as its name suggests, is a read-only type of memory. Data cannot be written. Data is written into it by the manufacturer. One major advantage with the ROM is its non-volatile type of memory. It does not lose its contents when the power supply to it is switched off. CPU support chips. Motherboard contains some supported chips or ICs. These chips help the CPU in carrying out various activities. Some of the common supported chips are DMA controller, interrupt controller, keyboard controller, timer, etc. Chipset commonly refers to a set of specialized chips on a computer's motherboard or an expansion card. All the diverse support functions inside a computer were integrated into a few VLSI components individually termed as application-specific integrated circuits. These chipsets are made by various motherboard manufacturers such as Intel, Opti, etc. Expansion slots to connect peripherals. The motherboard contains long, narrow connectors known as expansion slots at the back of the computer, which can be used to connect various peripheral devices to the computer. Connectors to the motherboard. There are several connectors on the motherboard to connect external reset switch, power LED, speaker, etc. to the system. When you remove any connection, always remember to note the position and orientation of each of them, as some of them are orientation sensitive and will not work when connected wrongly. This is the external battery connector. The pin numbers and their corresponding functions are given below. Next is the optional keyboard connector. The pin number and their corresponding function is given, then followed by power connector, AT power supply. Power is fed into the motherboard from two 6-way non-reversible connectors. The black wires of the connectors J10 and J11 are placed together while connecting them to the motherboard. So the ATX power supply, their pin numbers, their corresponding functions are given. The pin number of the key lock and power LED connector and their function is given. Speaker connector, the pin number of the speaker connector and their corresponding function is given. The loudspeaker is connected by a 4-way socket. Only the outer two pins are used. The CPU fan connector provides 12-volt DC supply to the CPU cooling fan. This fan is attached to the top of the heat sink element. Front panel connector. This connector integrates all system front panel functions into one single 26-pin connector. The functions are defined in the table below. Next, I move on to the architecture of the CPU. A central processing unit is an electronic circuitry within a computer that carries out the instructions of a computer program by performing the basic arithmetic, logic, control, and input-output operations. Below, we see a simplified diagram describing the overall architecture of a CPU, functions of the arithmetic logic unit, control unit, and the registers within the CPU. Memory holds both data and instructions. The arithmetic logic gate unit is capable of performing arithmetic and logic operations on data. A processor register is at a quickly accessible location available to a digital processor's central processing unit. Registers usually consist of a small amount of fast storage, although some registers have specific hardware functions and may be read only or write only. Buses. Address bus carries the address of the instruction or data. Data bus carries data between processor and the memory. Control bus sends control signals such as memory read, memory write. Together, these buses may be referred to as the system bus or the front side bus. The control unit controls the flow of data within the CPU. Input arrives into a CPU through a bus. Output exits the CPU through a bus. The different parts of a CPU are arithmetic and logic unit, control unit, registers, program counter, memory address register, memory data register, current instruction register, accumulator, and interrupt register. Well, so far I had spoken about motherboard components, connectors to the motherboard, and CPU architecture. Next, I move on to secondary storage. Secondary storage differs from primary storage. Secondary storage is not directly accessible by the CPU. The computer usually uses its input-output channels to access secondary storage and transfers the desired data to the primary storage. Secondary storage is non-volatile. In modern computers, hard disk drives or solid-state drives are usually used as secondary storage. The access time per byte for HDDs or SSDs is typically measured in milliseconds, while the access time per byte for primary storage is measured in nanoseconds. Thus, secondary storage is significantly slower than primary storage. Rotating optical storage devices such as a CD and DVD drives have even longer access times. Other examples of secondary storage technologies include USB flash drives, floppy disks, magnetic tape, punch cards, and RAM disks. Scanner. Scanner is used to input a photograph or any other existing drawing, sketch, and document into the computer. The scanner is a photocopier-like device which scans the image and sends the image into the computer. Once the image is scanned into the computer, you can manipulate the image using graphic manipulation software such as Corel Photo Paint, Adobe Photoshop, etc. Switched mode power supply. A switched mode power supply is an electronic power supply that incorporates a switching regulator to convert electrical power efficiently. Like other power supplies, an SMPS transfers power from a DC or AC source to DC loads, such as a personal computer, while converting the current. Switched mode power supplies are classified according to the type of input and output voltages. The four major categories are AC to DC, DC to DC, DC to AC, AC to AC. A basic isolated AC to DC switching mode power supply consists of input rectifier and filter, inverter consisting of switching devices, transformer, output rectifier and filter, feedback and control circuit. Advantages of switched mode power supplies. It has higher efficiency of 68% to 90%, regulated and reliable outputs regardless of variations in input supply voltage, small size and lighter, flexible technology, high power density. The disadvantages are generates electromagnetic interference, complex circuit design, expensive compared to linear supplies. Switched mode power supplies are used to power a wide variety of equipment such as computers, sensitive electronics, battery operated devices, and other equipment requiring high efficiency. Well, so far I had covered secondary storage, scanner, and switched mode power supply. Monitor. A computer monitor is an output device that displays information in pictorial form. The monitor displays the video and graphics information generated by the computer through the video card. Monitors are very similar to televisions, but they usually display information at a much higher resolution. Types of monitors: cathode ray tube, flat panel displays, under that LCD, liquid crystal display, light emitting diode, that is LED, and gas plasma. Screen size: the actual amount of screen space that is available to display a picture, video, or working space. Desktop screens are usually 14 to 25 inches by diagonal measurement. Aspect ratio: the aspect ratio is the ratio of the width of the display screen to its height. Two common aspect ratios are used: 4:3 and 16:9. Display resolution: the display resolution of a monitor indicates how densely packed the pixels are. In general, the more pixels, the sharper the image. Most modern monitors can display 1024 by 768 pixels. Some high-end models can display 1280 by 1024 or even 1600 by 1200. Color depth. Color depth describes how many colors that can be displayed on a monitor screen. Color depths used by monitor are given below. Monochrome monitor. A monochrome monitor is a type of CRT computer display which was very common in the early days of computing, from the 1960s through the 1980s, before color monitors became popular. They are still widely used in applications such as computerized cash register systems. Monochrome monitors actually display two colors, one for the background and one for the foreground. The colors used are black and white. Color monitor. Color monitors can display anywhere from 16 to over 1 million different colors. Color monitors are sometimes called RGB monitors because they accept three separate signals: red, green, and blue. Now let us see about ports and cables. A port is a physical docking point using which an external device can be connected to the computer. It can also be programmatic docking point through which information flows from a program to the computer or over the internet. Characteristics of ports. External devices are connected to a computer using ports and cables. Ports are slots on the motherboard into which a cable of external device is plugged in. Examples of external devices attached through ports are the mouse, keyboard, monitor, microphone, speakers, etc. So these are the ports. Types of ports. Serial port, used for external modems and older computer mouse. Two versions are used, 9-pin and 25-pin model. Data travels at 115 kilobits per second. Parallel port, it is used for scanners and printers, also called printer port. It is a 25-pin port. IEEE 1284 compliant Centronics port. PS2 port, it is used for old computer keyboard and mouse. It is also called mouse port. Most of the old computers provide two PS2 port, each for the mouse and the keyboard. IEEE 1284 compliant Centronics port. Universal Serial Bus port. It can connect all kinds of external USB devices such as external hard disk, printer, scanner, mouse, keyboard, etc. It was introduced in 1997. Most of the computers provide two USB ports as minimum. Data travels at 12 megabits per second. USB compliant devices can get power from a USB port. VGA port connects monitor to a computer's video card. It has 15 holes, similar to the serial port connector. However, serial port connector has pins. VGA port has holes. Power connector. Three-pronged plug connects to the computer's power cable that plugs into a power bar or wall socket. Firewire port transfers large amount of data at very high speed. Connects camcorders and video equipments to the computer. Data travels at 400 to 800 megabits per second. Invented by Apple. It has three variants: 4-pin Firewire 400 connector, 6-pin Firewire 400 connector, and 9-pin Firewire 800 connector. Modem port connects a PC's modem to the telephone network. Ethernet port connects to a network and a high-speed internet. Connects the network cable to a computer. This port resides on an Ethernet card. Data travels at 10 megabits to 1000 megabits per second depending upon the network bandwidth. Game port connect to a joystick to a PC. Now replaced by USB. Digital video interface connects flat panel LCD monitor to the computer's high-end video graphic cards. Very popular among video card manufacturers. Sockets. Sockets connect the microphone and speakers to the sound card of the computer. Now let us see about cables. Let's begin with display cables. There are four types of computer cable connections to a monitor: VGA, DVI, HDMI, and DisplayPort. If your monitor accepts two or more cable types, that is VGA and DVI, you should just connect a single display cable to it. If your CPU has integrated graphics and you install a discrete graphics card, you will end up with two set of display ports. In this case, always connect your display cable to your graphics card and not the motherboard. VGA cable, also known as D-sub cable, analog video cable, Connect one end to computer monitor, television. Connect other end to VGA port on computer. DVI cable. Connect one end to computer monitor. Connect other end to DVI port on computer. HDMI cable. Connect one end to computer monitor, television. Connect other end to HDMI port on computer. PS2 cable. Connect one end to PS2 keyboard, PS2 mouse. Connect other end to PS2 ports on computer. Ethernet cable, also known as RJ45 cable. 3.5 mm audio cable, also known as phone connector. USB cable. For USB computer cable connections, there are two popular formats, USB 2.0 and the newer USB 3.0. USB 3.0 cables have a blue tip and sometimes you can find a SS, that is super speed label on it. USB was intended to be the one computer cable connection to replace them all. Output devices are printer, all-in-one office machine, USB speaker, wireless adapters, network Wi-Fi adapter, Bluetooth adapter, 3G adapter, data cable for mobile devices such as mobile phones, tablets, MP3 players. Computer power cord. Connect one end to AC power socket. Connect other end to power supply unit, computer monitor. Thank you.